Hi everybody. So, rumour has it, by 2030, these things, petrol cars, are going to be banned, and 10 years after that they'll be virtually a memory. Now, if you believe that, I have some shares in a diamond mine in Fantasyland that I'd like to talk to you about. Saying that, I'm not trying to be mean here. There are problems with it. There are problems that everybody knows about and everybody's talking about, but there are problems that, people can do very little about, mostly because it's outside of their control. And of course that's got the government already talking about delaying this changeover. Take these things for example, batteries. Do you know there's a plan, actually it's more than a plan, they're implementing it, to ban lead acid batteries in their entirety across the whole of Europe. And given the growth and demand for batteries that electric vehicles are going to bring, there just aren't going to be enough batteries. It's not that we don't make enough. There aren't enough resources in the world, and where do we get those resources from? Huge questions that there's not much being done about. So what's going to be done about this circus? Well, not a lot, because there's not a lot we can actually do about it. So the chances are what we're actually going to do is the same thing that politicians excel at. We're going to cheat. If you've been watching car advertising, you'll notice that there's been a growth of advertising for something called the self-charging hybrid. To my mind, the self-charging hybrid is something of a whitewash. It still uses a petrol engine. It uses a petrol engine to charge the battery bank and then runs the car off the electric motor. But you need a much smaller battery bank and you can call it electric. It would seem to me that the petrol engine is anything but doomed. What we're going to do is throw a blanket over it and call it electric. Why not? So I would think that the petrol engine is likely to carry on for, well, centuries, and there have been some really interesting developments in it, particularly one coming out of Spain, Granada in fact, called the IN engine, INN. If we have a look at an animation of the engine running, we can see that it has 2 pistons per piston cylinder. The combustion forces the pistons away from each other. This is nothing new, this has been used before, but instead of being attached to a crankshaft, the bottom of the pistons are attached to rollers, and the rollers push on that strange wavy plate. So of course I turned to Tinkercad and drew that plate up because it looks like the heart of the machine, and it is a hyperbolic parabola. That's actually really kind of cool, but there is a hyperbolic parabola cam that is the heart of the IN engine, because if we're going to model this, we really need that. Of course, it's not a lot of use by itself, so I drew up the rest of the engine, actually half of it, because you get the other half, you just duplicate what we're doing here. So what we have is the actual cam itself, and then we have the carrier where it's going to sit, and in there is a thrust bearing at 41 by 11, and then a race bearing in the centre there, which is just a skater bearing, and our cam sits on there like that, and it's able to turn. And of course, being able to turn means that we can drive something. And what we're going to drive is our chain drive that we made in video 2015. So we're going to connect that to the cam there. When the cam spins, it'll drive that chain, and of course we need a little housing, and there's a housing in there. Whoops! That was to put everything together a bit more permanently than that. So the next bit you're going to need is the roller holder, and you'll notice there's this little projection on it, and that projection just hangs on the outside of the cam, and what that does is it stops the roller from twisting, because it's going to want to twist. If it twists that way, of course, it's going to stop the rotation, so that overhangs the cam and acts as a slide guide. We stick those in the top plate and put the top plate on. Actually, that's kind of cool. Okay, so the way this thing works is you put that cam just past its top centre, and then, of course, we'd have the petrol engine, press that, and it rotates. That's kind of cool. You notice these two popped up, so when we move that a little bit longer, press that, it rotates. So obviously, there you go. That's very cool. Obviously there's 3 things missing. One is it needs a flywheel. So if you put a flywheel on to continue the momentum of rotation, past that top dead centre, just like in a petrol engine. The other thing it's missing, obviously, is some way of forcing these down. I mean, my input to my engine is my finger. What we really need is some kind of driving force. So in the in-engine, of course, they use a combustion engine, internal combustion engine. But you could put solenoids on, you could put steam on. I would love to see if maybe it would work with a Stirling arrangement, but anything that's going to push on these piston rods is going to make that cam rotate and be an engine. And the last thing it's missing, of course, is timing. So if we put those three things on, we have ourselves a working engine. This is the in-engine mechanism. Now, it is being sold as a range extender, so calling it a battery range extender, not a petrol engine. But it is a really interesting design of a range extender. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to like and subscribe.